The shape of the galaxy. Union classifies territory according to a system of concentric rings around, radiating out from Sol. The rings are concentric. That's kind of redundant. The farther they lie from Cradle, the larger they are. Each ring is named after one of Cradle's mountain ranges. Link stations are named after peaks found in these mountain ranges. This is a shorthand system of names designed for simple civilian and governmental maps. Think about how neighborhoods are named. They are generally accurate markers and signs, but people refer to exact addresses when looking for specific locations. The convention of naming blink stations after peaks is less formal. There have not yet been enough stations built to account for every peak in any given range. There are ever more stations than there are peaks. Union's cartographers will probably make up new names. The Sol Andes line. Ring 1, Rocky Mountain line. Ring 2, Kumu line. Ring 3, Earl. Ring 4, Atlas. Ring 5, Ring 6. Ring 10 is the Cascades. Ring 11 is the Annamite line. Not even familiar with that. The Annamite line is the current edge of Union space. Beyond it lies uncharted territory, unexplored stars, and system toward the deep core of the Milky Way, and stars and systems toward the cold edge of intergalactic space. The beginning. Union was the only way we could build a new world, but before there could be union, there had to be a fall. Union historians place the early days of the fall around 6,000 years prior to Union's foundation. Beyond that date, specific records are few and often contradictory. What we do know is that Cradle was dying well before that date. An accumulation of fatal blows, 1,000 cuts made on the world by the people who lived upon it, had rendered humanity's only home all but inhospitable. The fall was not one single blow. There was time for acts of desperate hope. The creation of the Ten was one such endeavor. As long dark crept towards and then across Cradle, its governments crafted and populated 10 massive colony ships and launched them towards distant, previously identified worlds. These ships were slow, their titanic enclosed cylinder hulls pushed along by conventional sublight drives, but they marked old humanity's crowning achievement, a second chance. The 10 were humanity's last hope. They would travel for thousands of years, slowly accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed before slowing as they approached their destinations. Generations of passengers would live, die, and procreate, sustaining themselves in their ships until they arrived at worlds able to sustain human life. This was humanity's second chance. A handful of stones cast out into the night. The billions left behind watched the 10 burn away into the night, looking out through choking clouds of smog, dust, and smoke of raging, unstoppable wildfires. Then they fought for what remained. In the wake of the 10 departure, the world erupted into pandemonium, a violent crescendo that would end old humanity. The ruined climate choked the atmosphere, famine and fire tore apart the countryside, and disease scoured the cities. War ravaged the world. Lonely outposts and stations throughout the solar system, established when Earth was waning but not yet terminal, watched their homeworld go dark. Most withered or fell to internal strife, a rare few managed to hang on. Thousands of years passed in real time. Aboard the time crept at a slower pace, and the clocks fell behind those of Cradle. After the passing of the first generations, the new captains of the 10 made a mutual decision to avoid the danger of nostalgic return and ensure the success of their mission. The 10 would isolate themselves, ceasing communication with the world they left behind. While dying colonies cried desperately for help, Cradle continued to spin, silent and unresponsive. The poles thawed, and dead cities sank under rising lifeless oceans. Fire and fog swept the equator, while titanic storms thrashed the tropics. Ash fell over the whole of the world. Satellites and stations decayed in their orbits. Great shipyards fell silent. Glittering habitats on Mars and the Moon, once beacons of human achievement, cascaded into failure. The first Anthropocene, the age of old humanity, faded, buried under ash, water, illness, and desperate violence. Silence fell, but even still, Earth was not empty nor lost. Billions had died, but hundreds of thousands survived, persevering through the endless dark of the fall. After an unknown amount of time, estimated now to be 4,000 or 5,000 years, Cradle's population began to stabilize, then grow as the climate found a new balance. Long-dead variants of food staple crops returned, gnarled shrubs grew into new trees, the oceans receded, cooled, and filled themselves with the life that survived. The fires dimmed, then died. The greasy black and orange smear that was the sky gave way to light and deep blue. The air became safe to breathe. Civilization too grew again, and in so doing provided the germ of another downfall. First, local tyrants laid claim to the ruins of the past, organizing their domains around altars of scavenge and scrap. Wandering machines were tamed or hunted, followed, and worshipped. Small plots grew into farms. As before, lines and borders were drawn, land claimed, royalties pledged, scraps of cloth and paint, feathers and flags were given meaning and used to divide people into tribes, cities, kingdoms, then nations, and finally empires. The healing world was humbled by the first of three great revelations. Some historians paint them as three great traumas. The discovery of the massive vaults, huge stores of information and artifacts from before the fall. So far removed from old humanity, the survivors had come to think that they were the first to walk under the sun. The vaults showed them otherwise. They were not the first, they were the last. Reeling from this knowledge as the riches of old humanity were unleashed upon an injured world, the fledgling powers of Earth retreated to their corners. The second trauma was a reckoning, global war. The Little Wars, a bitter fight to control and consume the scraps of the long-dead past. The survivors gathered together at the conclusion of the Little Wars to pledge peace. The tools of war and capital were thrown aside that they might never kill the Earth again. Crowns and borders cast down, left to decay amidst the ruins of empire, new humanity finally united in trust, contrition, and solidarity, raised one banner, and committed themselves to one purpose: union. Foundation Day reset all clocks. Year Zero marked the beginning of a new age and redemption of a people. The bruised stewards of an old and aching world had one more chance at peace. Everything found in the vaults was given freely to the people who organized in groups and whose representatives met in a single shared campus. The tools of safe flight
I always try to keep a few hours gaps.
and clean power spread across Cradle. Reliable network communications bound union across continents. All of new humanity benefited from incredible advances in medicine, computing, and all other sciences. The bounties of the past given to the people with no kings or emperors or bosses to jealously guard them. Over time, researchers revealed much of the story of the fall of old humanity's desperate rush to preserve what it could so that future generations could begin anew with all the knowledge of those who came before. Union's archaeologists and anthropologists unearthed technologies that could have saved the world, but were discovered too late or kept from humanity by their owners, who only tried to save, or worse, enrich themselves. Unlike its predecessors, unions had no restrictions on time or license. Its planners and administrators nurtured a new humanity to live in gentle coexistence with the world upon which it lived. Some began to look out towards space. Newly discovered records spoke of inhabited worlds and distant stations of ancestors who escaped to the stars. Never a priority to human before, the stars took on a new meaning. Their ancestors might still be out there, and humanity might not be alone. With the approval of the United Committees of Cradle, its representatives formed Union's first central committee. The first committee, Union began the great work of reaching those stars. Dormant satellites were found in Earth's orbit, ancient shipyards hanging in space. On Luna, explorers found dusty colonies emptied but for the mummified remains of the people who once lived there. On Earth itself, investigators found charts, logs, trajectories. They found old telescopes, radio towers, and laser communication complexes preserved in deep ice on mountaintops and high places all over the world. They pointed them to the stars, turned them on, and waited. The first messages arrived almost immediately, and with them came the third great trauma. The voices of old humanity, thousands of years ancient and dead, carried on signals garbled by radiation, time, distance, crying out to their home for help. Lost souls that begged for aid, guidance, and their loved ones. Millennia of messages recorded and playing on endless decaying loops for the survivors to hear. This was the voice of old humanity as Union had never expected it. A desperate cry for help, a lonely gasp as the air ran out, a plea unanswered as the lights grew dim. Shaken and sobered, First Com eventually returned to those messages, resolved to answer those calls, ensure that whatever had caused them would never happen again. Old orbital stations were retaken. Vast machine minds, the first artificial intelligences, were reactivated and set to puzzle out solutions that humans could not. New ships, proud and able, were launched towards those old signals, along ancient charted paths and out towards new worlds. Union could not bring their dead back home, but they would choke the stars with the living. A galaxy full of life. During the period in which Lancer takes place, new humanity is vast and polyglot, living in the nascent dawn of a golden age. Across the Orion Arm of the Milky Way, human society is spread out across countless habitable and uninhabitable worlds. In the galactic core and increasing out the peripheries, new humanity enjoys the fruits of robust scientific, political, and cultural advancements and has access to such a profound abundance of resources and clean automated labor that has transcended capitalism altogether, a true utopia, one through struggle, and where beyond Union's completed utopian project, the revolutions that established the Golden Age are still ongoing. As ripples in a pond lengthen and fade the farther they travel from a stone's impact, Union's Golden Age is yet to be won at the margins. Metropolitans, the Golden Age, for a plurality of humans, is real, predicated on the work of generations of people struggling in collective action to win a better future. The life on these utopian capital worlds of the galactic core is stable, safe, and without want. Union and its third committee are well known, and its administrative differences aside, welcome. The galactic core is not a specific region of space, but a decentralized network of worlds all linked by close proximity blink gates. These massive space stations are the gatehouses to blink space, a space parallel to our own that enables faster than light interstellar travel. The core is connected despite its geography, not because of it, and defined not by proximity, but by development and access. The people of the capital worlds, called the metropolitans, flow through blank space in a constant stream, stepping from one world to the next, trading in culture, art, science, faith, theory, good, sport, and friendship. Metropolitan humanity expresses itself with an infinite diversity of faiths, cultural practices, genders, and social structures. On capital worlds, people create art, shape the land, build glittering cities, construct great works of engineering. They write, cook, drink, play, they journey, and they wander. This arm of the galaxy is populated by a roiling, surging mass of people, often contradictory, often myopic, but ever learning, ever growing. Beyond the galactic core, life still has raw and dangerous edge. In these distant places, humanity falls into one of two informal groups, cosmopolitans and diasporans. The first representing the frontier, and the second the vastness of the human diaspora. Cosmopolitans. Union's imperative: spread life and ensure it, demands a marching frontier. As humanity spreads out towards the galaxy's edge and towards its center, people establish settlements both in space and on firm ground. This population is the cosmopolita. Cosmopolitans are those who live between, in transit to, or beyond this frontier. Their ships and flotillas are their homes, now or since birth. They may have left their homeworlds far behind in time and space, or may have been born on a ship with the void and stars the only homeland they've ever known. Lacking reliable or ready access to blank space, these populations travel the old way. This interstellar travel comes at the cost of time spent in transit between blink gates, traveling across the void of space, and tuned in pause tanks, or awake and actively working as a crew. The life of a cosmopolitan is split between the subjective time and real time, time as they experience it, and time as it passes in the galaxy at large. This a consequence of conventional near-sea interstellar travel. Cosmopolitans trade the permanence and normality of a terrestrial life for one as vast and uprooted, a life lived in the wind, dipping back into real time only when they make port to trade, settle, or see what wonder the universe has crafted. Oh no. That doesn't really make that much sense to me. That if, that way of life at this point in time. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't. Why that's like a separate category. But, alright. Diasporans. Diasporan humans and their worlds are those that straddle the space between the cosmopolitans, liminal in time and geography, and the metro. Also, just like okay, I get it. I finally get it. I was really thinking I didn't like the name, because you already had the Metropolitans. But I'm thinking cosmopolitan, like we'd use it, but I'm pretty sure they're using this from the cosmonaut. I don't know. I don't like that name. Okay. Liminal time and geography, and the Metropolitans rooted in the galactic core. For the diasporan worlds, Union's utopia is an ongoing project, a future to be won through struggle. How best to organize and assist the diaspora towards Union's vision is a question among the bureaucrats, administrators, and generals of the Third Committee. No one party or faction has the answer. and the solutions proposed seem to be as varied as the problems encountered, just as geologically varied as the capital worlds of the galactic core. The many thousands of diasporan worlds represent a second frontier, one not raw and unexplored, but steeped in their own histories, their own institutions, and their own ignorance or knowledge of the Union. Union was not as always as egalitarian as it is now. For thousands of years prior to the establishment of the Third Committee, was an empire in all but name. This was the age of the Second Committee. Union advanced humanity's diaspora as a glacier scours the earth. Flashing cultures left by old humanity, societies built by First Committee, and all whose interpretation of the Union founding tenets diverged from Second Committee's dogmatic prescriptions. This expansionist ideology, anthrochauvinism, spread human life across whole regions of the round arm, but without compassion and at the smoking mouth of a Union soldier's rifle. Humanity swept across the stars like a wave. Only bloody revolution in the galactic war was able to topple Second Committee, replacing it with a new government, Third Committee. Only then, like a wave, did Union's presence recede. In this power vacuum, the immensity of the human diaspora flourished. Tens of thousands of colonial settlements grew to global civilizations. The once lost stellar civilizations of old humanity, birthed by the Ten, stepped into interstellar prominence. Free from Second Committee's colonial administration, these cultures and states developed divergent from Union's dogma. This is the diaspora, new humanity, both the known and unknown to Union, with a knowledge of Union that ranges from living at Utopia's periphery to living in ignorance of its existence. Diasporan worlds, while viewed by Third Committee as member states of Union, often has little to no direct interaction with it. Those societies that remember Union make myths of its distant power, some arching for its return and others cursing its name. The diversity of development found across diaspora mirrors the diversity of these cultures and their histories. Some diasporan worlds have small populations, isolated in tiny communities. Others span whole planets, a few even laying to neighboring moons and worlds in their local systems. The periphery. It has been 500 years since the death of the Second Committee and the birth of the Third, thousands more since the Second supplanted the First. While the worlds of the galactic core and much of the diaspora have been secured, the ghosts and other passing features haunt Union periphery. In its core, at the edges of Union space, the descendants of the Ten gather their strength, testing the mettle of Union. At Union's core, Second Committee's old imperial followers have formed a new generation of corpo states, each which probes the boundaries of Third Com's largesse. Utopia is under threat, and the golden age that is so close may be torn down before it can be fully realized. Now is the time for action, time for the utopian pillars. There are a few beliefs common to all humans under Union's purview. One, all shall have their material needs fulfilled. Two, no wall shall stand between worlds. And three, no human shall be held in bondage through forced labor or death. Human societies exist still on a spectrum of development. Although the peoples in the galactic core hold these statements to be sacred, the task of guaranteeing them is not yet a finished project. Most of the galaxy is far from all. The diasporan worlds that developed in the wake of Second Committee have developed for thousands of years with differing relations to the utopian pillars. Some have implemented them in ways that make the project of integration into Union's core an easy task. Others reject them and raise forces against Union's representatives. Acceptance of the utopian pillars does not negate the need for violence or war. Union maintains an active military, and its planners expect to encounter a not insignificant degree of resistance when interacting with post-Second Committee cultures. Power never gives up power. Third Committee, while its primacy to slow diplomatic solutions ultimately acknowledges that power in some cases must be taken from the powerful and redistributed to the people. This dream has been fulfilled in some places, on some worlds. Everywhere else, the realization of this project is Union's central goal. Union is an incomplete project and human to its core. Despite every miracle of technology at its disposal, the fulfillment of this dream still requires people to make the right decisions, to greet with compassion the myriad of people so hurt by Third Committee's predecessors, and to build this grand project together. Union in 501(6)(u). Union's Galactic Administration. Union's Galactic Administration is made possible by three fundamental institutions: the Blink Network, MANA, and OmniNet. Union uses these institutions to manage the affairs of the galaxy. From the relatively small territory it directly controls. Without them, the scattered bastions of humanity across the Orion Arm would be separated by time and distance too great for Union to manage. New humanity would fracture into tens of thousands of individual states, some claiming scant territory on backwater colony worlds, while others maintaining whole systems. But Union works toward a greater purpose than most know. It seeks to ensure human existence on a grand scale, following the guidance of its most powerful minds to ensure that humanity can spread across the stars, never again face a true threat. The vast apparatus of Union works night and day to accomplish this goal for a simple reason. The threat of humanity's extinction is very real if Union's most secret bureaus are to be believed, growing more likely. Regardless, Union is profoundly distant from the overwhelming majority of diasporans. It is rarely, if ever, encountered by normal people going about their day-to-day lives. Space, after all, is impossibly vast. Even with blink gates that allow faster-than-light travel, only a slim percentage of humanity actually travels between the stars. For a farmer on a distant agricultural world, an encounter with a Union agent would be a once-in-a-generation event. Encounters with Union's armed forces are events that define an epoch. Far more common for most people are the comfortable interactions that take place with the authorities that govern their own town, city, planet, or system, be they monarchies, workers' collectives, priesthoods, or any number of organizational bodies. Cosmopolitans, especially traders, merchants, and pilots, are much more familiar with Union than the grounded. Diasporan cousins, those who make their homes among the stars or who travel blink space for trade, exploration, crime, or adventure, may very well have crossed paths with Union's administrators, scientists, soldiers, or other representatives. Those diasporan researchers who know about and interact with Union tend toward engineering and the harder sciences. They are drawn to Union through the OmniNet, rich with information, and the galaxy riddled with mysteries. Researchers and scholars of the humanities who work with Union tend to be cosmopolitans by choice, if not by birth. As their studies often demand, they live within other cultures, travel the Blink Network, or journey to distant dead worlds. Throughout the galaxy, military professionals tend to have the messiest encounters with Union. Many fight as auxiliaries or enlist in the Union Navy itself, while others end up on the other side of the conflicts with the same. Blanks are set in 501(6). During the age of the Third Committee, the third iteration of Union Central Committee, Third Committee emerged from lengthy negotiations following the overthrow of the longest ruling central government in Union's history, the Second Committee. Third Committee is defined by its rejection of Second Committee's values and its readoption of the utopian pillars. The old doctrine of aggressive colonial expansion and reconquest has been replaced with a hands-off approach to outreach spearheaded by Union Administrative Department. Third Committee bore witness to Second Committee's crimes, the Hercynian Crisis, the Piston One attack against the Alm that brought about the change from the First Committee to the Second. Countless colonial suppressions, its response has been to pursue a slower and more moderated path toward galactic integration. Third Committee, recoiling from the naked aggression of its predecessor, places much more emphasis on hegemony, relying on the soft powers of commerce, travel, and communication to bring the galaxy under Union's control. After taking power, Third Committee immediately and dramatically reduced the size of the Union Naval Department, relying on a small, centralized colonial force. Third Committee's agents implemented various naturalization processes and a new approach toward building intergalactic solidarity through shared work. The Auxiliary Doctrine, which seeks to integrate the disparate cultures of the diaspora into Union's ideological space through liberation struggles, cultural exchange and mixing, and a choice of civic or martial service. As the armed forces were stripped back, other instruments of diplomacy filled the gap. Noticeably, the size and scope of the Union Administrative Department, its portfolio has grown dramatically under Third Committee. Where the Navy once was the first point of contact for humanity's diaspora, now the pale gray of an administrator's suit has become Union's symbol and its beacon. The UAD is a massive bureaucracy and the first point of contact for Union diaspora diplomacy and cultural exchange. Embodied in the administrators, it dispatches to all diasporan worlds. The UAD approaches the galaxy with the desire to build communication and integration. This is a slow, titanic process, but is Third Committee's greatest achievement and the feature that set it apart from its predecessors. In another early act of revolutionary fervor, Third Committee dissolved the once formidable Union Colonial Mission, a bureau with a history stretching back to the First Committee and humanity's first forays into space, and replaced it with two new bodies, the Bureau of Colonial Administration and the Union Department of Justice and Human Rights. While UCM's mission had been to recontact, recolonize, and assimilate diasporan and newly settled worlds into Union, populated worlds are not included in the scope of BCA's mission. Its portfolio extends only to terrestrial worlds and moons capable of supporting colonies that do not have indigenous populations. While the DOJ-HR saves worlds and the UAD builds them, the BCA finds worlds and manages the establishment of new colonial ventures. Meanwhile, the DOJ-HR is tasked with investigating and reporting on potential violations of the Union pillars on diasporan worlds, responding with force if necessary. The Third Committee's approach isn't without trade-offs and challenges. Notably, many have criticized a perceived lack of urgency in response to violations of the pillars. These critiques have merit, though the reasons for this sluggishness are complex. Union's many departments have long institutional memories, and reformists still face considerable resistance from their organizational structures. Some organs are staffed almost by believers in revived or reinvigorated ideologies. Of these, Union Economic Bureau is the worst offender, or for conservatives, the last great hope. further complicating the pacifist legacy of the early Third Committee. A new generation of representatives, the New Solidarity Commission, has consistently agitated a force-forward approach to pillar violations. While these interventionists reject the ideology, they insist that unions' mandate demands a far more assertive stance, that unions' hegemony demands not just stewardship but cultivation. For them, the time is right for union to make its presence known among the stars as an agent for humanity rather than one of humanity. So we'll go ahead and end this here today. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll start with the major factions in Union. Also, we'll do our weekly reading. So if you have any questions, have them prepared.